Hey guys, welcome back to Resistance Chicks. We're your hosts, long time no see. Today is the 8th of March, 2018.
The other video is going to get deleted.
The other video is going to get deleted. We just tried to go live and then we were having audio issues. I think it is fixed. You guys can tell me in the chat.
Yep.
But anyway, as I mentioned in our previous attempt here, we were going to do an interview with IPP TV, the Polish station. Make Poland great again.
Yes.
But they couldn't get to us today, so we already had everything set up. We figured we'll go ahead and go live now as opposed to later, and I'm really sorry that we didn't get to go live last night.
And I'm all dressed in red and white for my Polish people. I even have the pen. We were sent pins. But I have some great news. Well, I have some news for you. I'm not sure how great it is, but we have a great show for you, I think, today. We have Tucker Carlson and Jordan Peterson. Dynamic duo. Once again, Tucker Carlson has this Wednesday Make Men Great Again show.
I love it.
Which is fantastic. That mainstream we're talking about things like lower sperm counts, men not...
It's a bad time to be a man right now.
It's a bad time to be a man right now. That's absolutely true. And, you know, sometimes in order to make yourself better, you don't have to push somebody else down.
True.
So for women to succeed, you don't have to make men not succeed, right?
Right.
So I'm very excited to show you that. Then we're going to talk about Jeff Sessions. So last night, Twitter lit up with excitement because Jeff Sessions mentioned something about another possible special counsel, which Trey Gowdy says is needed because the Inspector General doesn't have the jurisdiction to interview everyone that he needs to interview. And he is concerned with what's going on with the FISA. And I am happy with this interview with Jeff Sessions. It shows a side of him that we all needed to see.
And for those of you that don't know, you haven't been with Resistance Chicks for a while. When Jeff Sessions was kind of coming to the forefront, we were excited. My gut said this is a good guy.
He is a good guy. He really is.
I don't think that has changed, but Lee and I have felt consistently that somebody was holding and is probably holding something over Jeff Sessions that has been muzzling him.
Yeah, definitely. So we're going to get to that. First off, these two segments are going to run together because the FBI here briefed lawmakers earlier on the failures leading up to the Florida shooting. Now, it came out that when these FBI agents take these calls, it's not an automation like I thought it was.
Right.
They're literally talking to somebody who writes things down, and then
yeah.
they take it. They do take it to their superior,
like a 911 call.
So somebody took down the YouTube guy who said, "Uh-oh, I've had a YouTube channel." Somebody said they're going to be a massive...
Wasn't that somewhere in September of 2017?
No, it might have been. I might have been 16, 17. But I do know for a fact that the July call, when that was taken down and the dispatcher wrote everything down, they put the two calls together and they said this is the same person.
Yes.
Major drop of the ball there because
said that
the superior said no big
gonna
deal, we're not going to investigate that. So top House Republicans said Wednesday that a senior FBI official had briefed lawmakers on the agency's failure to respond to warnings about the teenager accused of carrying out, well, obviously he did, the deadly shooting in Florida. Acting FBI Director David Bowditch, haven't heard his name before, met with lawmakers on the House Oversight and Government Reform and Judiciary Committees Tuesday to discuss the missteps that were taken. He acknowledged that the FBI failed to follow its own protocol after it received a tip in January. And the FBI admitted that just 2 days after the February 14th shooting that it received a tip from a person close to Cruz that the previous month morning. So we knew, he's just saying just 2 days after we told you what was going on. So let's hear from Tucker here, and he's going to give us some updates.
Joining us now is Fox's Matt Finn. Hey, Matt.
Hey, Matt.
Tucker, the Broward County Sheriff's Office posted a new fact-checker website, which it says is meant to clarify misinformation and allegations surrounding the Parkland, Florida shooting. The website says claims that some deputies were told they could not enter without a body camera is false, explaining any suggestion that Sheriff Scott Israel or any deputy from the Broward Sheriff's Office ordered body cameras to be turned on prior to entering the school is false. However, multiple law enforcement sources tell Fox News there were some deputies that could not enter the school without a body camera that day. Noteworthy that the sheriff explains no one was ordered to turn on their camera before entering. It doesn't say no one was told not to enter without a camera. The sheriff's new website also says claims that Captain Jan Jordan commanded deputies to stage or form a perimeter too soon instead of focusing on neutralizing the shooter are also false. Explaining in part the shooting stopped when Jordan asked about a perimeter to protect a nearby school and that the suspect had already fled the high school. However, multiple law enforcement sources tell Fox News Jordan ordered a perimeter, did not ask for one. And the dispatch logs obtained by Fox News even appear to indicate that just 11 minutes after the shooting began, even as new calls of victims were still coming in, Jordan said over the radio, need a perimeter. And after the perimeter command, even an aircrew said it wasn't taking off because the shooter had not yet been contained. And new tonight, the FBI admits that the staffer who took that phone call in January in which the FBI was tipped off about Nicholas Cruz failed to ask investigative follow-up questions. Tucker.
Matt Finn for us. Thanks for that, Matt. Well, something ominous is happening.
So now, I just want to give you guys an update of what's going on in Parkland. There's a lot going on still in Parkland. They're getting ready for this march on Washington. Good news, what I found ironic, is that they planned their march, I believe, for March 24th. However, a film crew already has the National Mall then, so they won't be in the National Mall. They'll be somewhere else, but I just feel like it's a lord that they can't be in the National Mall because our founding fathers say you cannot be in the National Mall and decry the Second Amendment. We just won't have it. And I think God set that up. So, anyways, we're going to talk about that too a little bit later. But let's get into this. It's very, it's a much needed conversation.
We may just let Sydney cry. She had teeth pulled on
And she had a little
Monday.
thing under her tongue. She had surgery. But we have some soft treats we could toss at her, right?
But then she'll just keep going.
No, well, she stopped.
Happening to American men. If you've been paying attention, you've noticed it. Jordan Peterson joins us to explain what we can do. Our series is next. Now, the first part of a series you'll see here every Wednesday in the month of March, focusing on men in America. The signs are everywhere. If you're a middle-aged man, you probably know a peer who has killed himself in recent years, at least one. If you're a parent, you may have noticed that your daughter's friends seem a little more on the ball than your son's. They get better grades, they smoke much less marijuana, they spend less time playing video games, they go to more prestigious colleges. If you're an employer, you may have noticed that your female employees show up on time. The young men often don't. And of course, if you live in this country, you've just seen a horrifying series of mass shootings, far more than we've ever had. Women didn't do that. In every case, the shooter was a man. Something ominous is happening to men in America. Everyone who pays attention knows that. What's odd is how rarely you hear it publicly acknowledged. Our leaders pledge to create more opportunities for women and girls, whom they imply are failing. Men don't need help. They're the patriarchy. They're fine, more than fine. But are they fine? Here are the numbers. Start with the most basic, life and death. The average American man will die 5 years before the average American woman.
Big deal.
One of the reasons for this is addiction. Men are more than twice as likely as women to become alcoholics. They're also twice as likely to die of a drug OD. In New Hampshire, one of the states hardest hit by the opioid crisis, 73% of overdose deaths were men. But the saddest reason for shortened lifespans is suicide. 77% of all suicides in America are committed by men. The overall rate is increasing at a dramatic pace. Between 1997 and 2014, there was a 43% rise in suicide deaths among middle-aged American men. The rates are highest among American Indian and white men who kill themselves at about 10 times the rate of Hispanic and black women. You often hear America's incarceration crisis. Well, that's almost exclusively a male problem, too. Over 90% of inmates are men. Now, these problems are complex, but we know that they start young. And relative to girls, boys are failing in school. More girls than boys graduate high school. Considerably more go to and graduate from college. In schools at every level, boys account for the overwhelming majority of discipline cases. One study found that fully 1 in 5 high school boys had been diagnosed with some form of hyperactivity disorder. That's compared with just 1 in 11 girls. Many of them were medicated for it. The long-term health effects of those medications, not fully understood, but they do appear to include depression in later life.
The ADD medicines?
Yeah.
Women now decisively outnumber men in graduate school. They earn the majority of doctoral degrees. They're now the majority of new enrollees in both law and medical schools. For men, the consequences of failing in school are long-term and profound. Between 1979 and 2010, working-age men with only high school degrees saw their real hourly wages drop about 20%. Over the same period, high school-educated women saw their wages rise. The decline of the industrial economy disproportionately hurt men. There are now 7 million working-age men in America who don't work. They've dropped out of the labor force. Nearly half of them take pain medication on any given day. That is the highest rate in the world by far.
Half of them took pain medication.
Far fewer young men get married than did just a few decades ago, and fewer stay married. About 1 in 5 American children live now only with their mothers. That's double the rate of 1970. Millions more boys growing up without fathers. Young adult men are now more likely to live with a parent than they are to live with a spouse or a partner. That is not the case for young women. Single women buy their own homes at more than twice the rate of single men. More women than men now have driver's licenses. Whenever gender differences come up in public debate, the so-called wage gap seems to dominate the conversation. You've heard it. A woman makes 77 cents for every dollar a man earns. That's a statistic that you'll hear a lot. Presidents have repeated it, many candidates. It's everywhere. And yet that number compares all American men to all American women across all professions. No legitimate social scientist would consider that a valid or meaningful measure. The number doesn't mean anything. It's intentionally misleading. It's a talking point. Once you compare men and women with similar experience, working the same hours and similar jobs for the same period of time, that's the only way you can measure it,
right.
The gap all but disappears. In fact, it may invert. One study using census data found that single women in their 20s living in metropolitan areas now earn 8% more on average than their male counterparts. By the way, the majority of managers in the workplace are now women. Women on average are scoring higher on IQ tests than men are. Even physically, men are falling behind. A recent study found that almost half of young men failed the Army's entry-level physical fitness exam during basic training. Fully 70% of American men are now overweight or obese. That's compared to 59% of American women. Perhaps most bafflingly and terrifyingly, men seem to be becoming less male fundamentally. Measurably. Sperm counts, for example, across the West have plummeted. They're down almost 60% since the early 1970s. Scientists don't know why this is. Testosterone levels in men have also fallen precipitously. One study found that average levels of male testosterone dropped by 1% every year after 1987, and it's not related to...
I don't think it's just food. I don't think it's just water. I don't think it's just Wi-Fi. These are some things.
Right.
But I think that over 50% or 50% of what makes food is definitely a huge part. Definitely a huge part. The soy, stay away from soy, whatever you can do. But the idea of doing masculine things creates the hormone in your body of testosterone.
Correct.
So little boys running around playing cowboys and Indians are actually getting their hormones going in that direction.
Right.
So, when you're working on a farm or when you're hunting, you learn to hunt or you learn to do all these things outside, things that males do that heighten the excitement part of your brain. Now, a lot of males today heighten that excitement part of their brain through video games.
And pornography.
So those two things don't help with testosterone. Right? And so those are, to me, it's partly food, it's partly water, partly ADD medications, but a lot of it is you're not actually growing up with the ability or the freedom to get those hormones, the testosterone hormones, just even going in your body to begin with. If you're buy all your food from the grocery store.
Right.
You're not hunting. You're not going outside. You're not, and also, you're not providing, which creates testosterone.
That was one thing that I thought you left out, because we always want to go to hunting because it's the easiest thing to say, but that's a very small portion of
the need to provide
manliness.
Creates a hormone. We don't realize that our whole bodies are regulated through hormones. It doesn't necessarily mean a sexual hormone.
No. It just means literally
hormones
a hormone
that make things go. Your thyroid hormone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. So with males, I think the best thing you can do is to seek God, to try to be a provider, and those hormones will actually start to build up inside of you.
Yeah.
And the thing of it is, when I see guys with guns and who use guns, the idea of protecting or killing even creates a hormone in your body. Guys who use guns, just from my own observation, guys who use guns look male. When I go to a gun range, the guys on YouTube,
the best analogy is, we know this soy boy, right? The skinny armed, kind of slumped. I can't even do it. My shoulders don't slump. The slumped shoulder, just small. You don't see those types of males.
It's so odd to me.
You don't see the soy boys.
You do see healthier females with broader shoulders than you do males. Like, what is causing the male's shoulders to shrink? It's absolutely
when I go to the
insane.
grocery store and I see these tiny little
like
men,
what
it's
is
very
happening
odd to
to
me.
the men that
I'm gonna put her downstairs.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Come on.
To age. In other words, the average 40-year-old man in 2017 would have testosterone levels 30% lower than the average 40-year-old man in 1987. There is no upside to this trend. Lower testosterone levels in men are associated with depression, lethargy, weight gain, decreased cognitive ability. Nothing like this has ever happened to a population this big. So you'd think we'd want to know exactly why. What's going on? How do we fix it?
What's going on?
And yet the media ignore that story. It's considered a fringe topic somehow. Nor is it, believe it or not, a priority in the scientific research establishment. We checked, and we couldn't find a single NIH-funded study on why testosterone levels are falling. We did find a study on, quote, pubic hair grooming prevalence and motivation among women in the U.S. So those are the numbers, and they paint a very clear picture. American men are failing in body, in mind, and in spirit. This is a crisis.
Did you study on?
Yet our leaders pretend it's not happening, and in fact they tell us the opposite is true. Women are victims, men are oppressors. To question that assumption is to risk punishment. Even as women far outpace men in higher education, for example, virtually every college campus supports a women's studies department whose core goal is to attack male power. Our politicians and business leaders internalize and amplify that message. Men are privileged, women are oppressed. Hire and promote and reward accordingly. Now that would be fine if it were true, but it's not true. At best, it's an outdated view of an America that no longer exists. At worst, it's a pernicious lie. Either way, ignoring the decline of men does not help anyone. Men and women need each other. One cannot exist without the other. That is elemental biology. It's also the reality that each one of us has lived with our parents and siblings and friends. When men fail, all of us suffer. How did this happen? How can we fix it?
Is the God's
we hope that this
honest
series,
truth.
each Wednesday this month, answers those questions. Jordan Peterson is a professor at the University of Toronto. He's written a lot about the decline of modern men. We spoke to him recently. Jordan Peterson, thanks for joining us. We've got a long list of statistics that paint a pretty clear picture that boys seem to be falling behind relative to girls in the United States. Why do you think that is?
I think that that's partly a consequence of directed policy. So it's linked to the idea that there's something wrong with masculinity, and so that the expression of masculinity should
that
be
right there. And I know you guys want to listen to Jordan Peterson, but you also watch us because you want our commentary on it. And my first thought is, it's the idea that there's something wrong with masculinity, and yet no one would ever say there's something wrong with femininity. You know, you're allowed to be as feminine as you want.
Yeah, just look at the transgenders.
You know what I mean? But there really is. People get angry if you develop the characteristics
My angry eyes.
of what makes a man a man.
Yeah.
arbitrary ways.
They just jealous.
The fact that kids can't really play at schools anymore is a manifestation of that. The fact that male behavior is often diagnosed as attention deficit disordered, for example, is a manifestation of that. The elimination of competition as a valid form of human interaction, and the failure to recognize that competitive sports, for example, are deeply cooperative in their fundamental nature, as long as everyone is playing by the rules, obviously. So there's that. That's a large part of it.
Pause it again.
Sorry,
I don't want to keep interrupting, but seriously, the mention of ADHD brings to mind something that I was texting some of our friends today, and that is this. Whoever came up with the idea that to take a child in their most formative years and say you need to sit in a desk for 8 hours a day, and then because we're talking about motivation, and are Americans people inherently lazy? And I was like, you know what, they're not. It doesn't matter what kind of general characteristics or personality traits that you're born with. If you are raised on a farm and you don't go to public school and you're not told to sit in a desk for 8 hours a day, you are automatically, just by physical nature, going to grow up and be more of a hard worker, even if you're prone to being lazy, than these kids that are taught physically, mentally, and emotionally to sit and be still for 8 hours a day.
If you train a horse to do something, or you walk a dog in a certain path every day, so what happens is these people, and all people in general, are trained to get up, get ready, and then sit for 8 hours a day. And the best kids are the kids who sit the best.
And it goes against all of nature. And so then they diagnose these children, and some of them legitimately have ADHD because of the food and nutrition and vaccines and things like that. But a lot of these kids that are being diagnosed with ADHD, it is simply because they are not meant to be sitting behind a desk for 8 hours a day. And like Jordan Peterson was saying, we can't play anymore. They're getting rid of recess at school and things like that. I mean, the whole thing.
I just saw a Japanese school that was outside with no walls.
Really?
Yeah, kids just ran around pretty much all day. No, something like that. But anyways, I was talking to Patriot Gallery, and I was saying, the best thing for children to do is to get up and you do all of your work during the day, but this only works if you have parents at home, at least one parent at home, and all of your work and all of your fun while it's light out.
Yeah.
And then this is what our founding fathers said. This is seriously what our founding fathers did.
This is how I plan on raising my children one day, Lord willing.
All of your good hours are spent outside. And then as the sun goes down, because for all intents and purposes, the sun goes down for 3/4 of the year before it's time for bed.
Yeah.
Right? So, and that's why you have summer, and that's why summer's off from schooling.
Yep.
Because you can go to bed because when the sun goes down in the summer, right? But for 3/4 of the year, the sun goes down, you bring out your candles, and you do your schoolwork, and you only need 2 or 3 hours to get a really good education when it is focused.
And then it can also be an enjoyable, exciting experience for kids.
But see, you're worn out at that point.
Yeah.
You're tired. And actually, it used to be that actually getting into books was the fun part.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't wait till we get in.
Can't wait till my chores are done.
Our
and all
chores
the
are
hard
done.
work of the day
The hard
is done.
work's
Because then I get to learn.
We've eaten dinner. We're full. Our bodies have gotten all the energy out, and now I can focus and think because my body has spent all the energy.
Yeah.
We walk dogs all day long. If you want to train a dog, you've got to wear it out first, and then you can train an animal better than if it's just all hyped up and just wanting to run out. You've got to get. And different kids have different energy levels. And that's why
somebody had said in the chat here, and I don't want to disagree with you because you're right. It says there is no discipline. You're right that there's no discipline. But by and large,
somebody's being disciplined for doing something that comes naturally, then you don't need to be
these kids are bouncing off the walls because they have all this energy because of poor nutrition and sugar in their food, and because they are not utilizing the God-given gift that they are being given.
It's like dogs.
At this age. You can't discipline that into a child.
There are a lot of different kinds of breeds of dogs, and I don't recommend anybody get a Husky or an Australian Shepherd who doesn't want to be outside with their dogs.
Working
their dogs, working their bodies and their minds.
It's cruelty to that animal.
It's cruelty to the animal. And that's what we get paid to do, to try to wear animals out.
Right.
So that they can come home and be a better dog in the house.
It's cruelty to children, the way that they are raised in this institutionalized childhood.
It's prison, yeah.
All right, let's
Keep going.
Jordan Peterson go.
You're saying that there is an organized, not always explicit, but still organized attempt to de-emphasize masculinity or to punish masculinity. Why?
Because it's easy to mistake masculine competence for the tyranny that hypothetically drives the patriarchy. It's part of a ideological worldview that sees the entire history of mankind as the oppression of women by men, which is a dreadful way of looking at the world, a very pathological way of looking at the world.
And it's not true.
It's not like men and women always get along any more than men and men get along, or women and women for that matter.
Right.
But fundamentally, human history is a cooperative enterprise, and men and women have lifted themselves out of the mire over millennia in their cooperative endeavor. And to describe that as centuries of the oppression of women by men is an absolutely reprehensible ideological rewrite of history. And it's what's taught in the humanities and in much of the social sciences at universities, and increasingly in the public education system. It's taken as an unassailable fact.
And you're saying that this has bad consequences for the development of boys?
Well, how could you feel good about that? I mean, if you're made out to be a potential manifestation of rape culture, if you're part of toxic masculinity, if your competitive drive is regarded as part of a tyrannical impulse, if the heritage to which you belong is regarded as an oppressive patriarchy, then how in the world are you going to step forward with confidence and shoulder that what would you call it, that burden? Why would you? Why wouldn't you just step aside and retreat, which is exactly what's happening?
But if men are so aggressive and bent on domination, on establishing a patriarchy, why have they stepped back and allowed this to happen?
Yeah, well, I guess that's a good question, isn't it? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if they are precisely allowing it to happen. It's very insidious, the ideological movement that's driving this. Part of the radical left, I would say, is it's a very insidious movement. It's not an easy thing to resist, and a lot of it occurs, well, for example, it occurs in the school system increasingly. And it isn't clear they're not men that are reacting to that, that's boys. It's not clear what they're supposed to do about it. So if you were to fight an ideological battle.
It is hard. And finally, if you were to give parents of boys one piece of advice for how in their small way they can fight against this trend for the sake of their own boys, what would it be?
Well, I would say, first of all, encourage them. And I mean that most deeply, is that to encourage someone is to instill courage in them, to support their courage. And that doesn't mean protect them from what's dangerous. It means teach them how to be competent and teach them that they can rely on themselves to prevail even in the darkest of circumstances. That's part of it. Yes. I would say as well, more specifically, and this is specific advice for parents, if you have your children in a school and they talk about equity, and there's a class and they talk about equity, diversity, inclusivity, white privilege, systemic racism, any of that, you take your children out of the class. They're not being educated, they're being indoctrinated. And there's absolutely no excuse for it.
I agree with that completely. You might run out of schools pretty quickly, though, here in this country.
That would be just fine.
It's hard to express my gratitude to you for telling the truth as you do. Thank you very much for that.
My pleasure.
Okay. No, but seriously. I mean, okay.
And he just not like...
He was like his kind of maleness. Did you see it rise up?
That would be just fine.
That would be just fine if we had less schools.
Less indoctrination centers. And he's totally for education, not schooling. There's a difference between schooling and being truly
indoctrinated in the public school system that teaches these little boys that everything that should make them healthily, is that a word? Prideful in who they are.
Confident.
In a healthy way. Confident, right? They wipe that away. They shove it under the rug. They say you can't be that.
Right.
And then here's a soy latte, so you actually can't develop it either. That's what they do. I mean, it's ridiculous.
So speaking of soy lattes, the Hollywood Reporter came out with this. Now, from what I understand, the article isn't necessarily about the beta male. But these are, I guess, actors on a TV show.
Okay.
And the Hollywood Reporter came out with this thing saying the rise of the beta male, the cast of HBO's Silicon Valley stand in line with hands in each other's pockets. I want you to see. Sometimes there's
Belinda says we homeschooled. I used to say it wasn't about what they aren't teaching. I could supplement, but I didn't know how to combat the indoctrination.
So you can't really see it, or they cut it off, but like they put each other's hands in each other's pockets, which is just weird. This guy just
that's
looks
so creepy.
really bad.
That's so
So
creepy.
these are all these soy people. This is, I always ask this, like, how do these kind of people get roles, like in movies and TV shows? Because they're really hard to look at. And I have come to the conclusion that it's the soy boys and these beta males who are writing the scripts. So they are writing themselves in as the heroes. Like with that 70s show, they're writing themselves in as heroes.
It's true.
But they're nerds. They're dorky.
Oh,
and I
my
mean
gosh.
that in a derogatory term.
We watched a
Smart
movie
people are awesome, but
last night where
this is not awesome.
The main character was supposed to be, this futuristic man. And it was more like a man-child. And the whole time I'm thinking to myself, this is what you aspire to be this tiny little like stick figure. That's I'm so confused.
So, I like this quote here. There's not a whole lot of praise for limp-wristed folk outside of the image subtitles. Zach Wood, who plays Jared, says there is a tender quality to these guys. I'm among my tribe of like beta males. So the fact that these dudes are actually grabbing onto it, agreeing with it, embracing the beta male. This is embarrassing, okay? This is, that movie Lucas or whatever. I hated that movie. Don't watch it. I was traumatized by that movie when I was a kid.
Which one was it?
It was like not Sean Austin, the other, one of the Coreys. It's a football movie. It's just bad.
Okay.
You don't want to see it. But anyways, it's like a dorky little kid and then against a football player. But anyways, how do you even talk about this without putting people down? Because I don't want to put people down, but like they even put Tucker Carlson's thing in here of the decline of males. And the fact that the left has at this point embraced it instead of saying, hey, there could be something wrong here. There could be something wrong with 77% of suicides being male. There could be something wrong with 47% rise in suicide since 1997.
You know what? It really
there could be something wrong with why are 7 million men are living at home with their parents or something like that. It used to be that a male would actually, seek to provide, so he would go out and buy a house. But now most men who are single rent. And then they buy a house, but I know a lot of single women who own homes. They're like, I want a house. I'm going to get me a house. I don't care if there's no man. I'm living in a house, man.
I want to go back to what you were talking about because I think it's existential to the problem here, and that's hormones. Because you have these men and their hormones are completely out of whack. And as we all know, let's say a woman has approached her monthly or whatever, hormones make people unbalanced. Okay, imbalanced in the brain. You can't function. And these men are operating under a constant hormonal imbalance, which is changing them physically.
Right.
It's changing them mentally. And so I do think that has a lot to do with it.
So I like this tweet here because on lots of people were sharing his segment. I mean, it was all over Facebook, it was all over Twitter. We should put this in a museum to explain this moment in time. because Tucker really hammered all the stats.
He did.
Like, and that sperm count stat we've talked about. And poor Alex Jones, right? Poor Alex Jones. Everywhere he goes,
putting chemicals in the water and turning the frogs
everywhere
gay.
he goes, they say gay frogs. But that is actually there are actually literal scientific studies that have shown that with the Roundup, right? The Roundup in the water is causing frogs to turn gay. It's the atrazine, exactly. Here's a quote here. Winston Churchill predicted this crisis nearly 100 years ago in his essay, Mass Effects of Modern Life. And that's what it boils down to. The witchcraft that is modern life. You were talking about that the other day. Sydney's back. Which I just so happened to have read today for another piece this person was writing about. In his essay published in 1925, the great statesman notes that there is no longer room for great men. For heroes or victors. Really? Like Teddy Roosevelt, riding around... for victors in modern society, what will happen to us when our heroes are no longer titans but movie stars, right?
Should I put her in the back?
Sydney?
Yeah.
Sure. Can modern communities do without great men? Can they dispense with hero worship? Can they provide a larger wisdom, a nobler sentiment, or a more vigorous action by collective processes than we ever got from the titans? Can nations remain healthy? Can all nations draw together in a world whose brightest stars are film stars and whose gods are sitting in the gallery? A lot of people have said that Trump is going to go down as the greatest president. Some people said that. I disagree. There will never be a better president than George Washington, ever. He is one of the best men in the entire world to have ever lived. He started out as a surveyor. He surveyed this very land that I'm in right now. Like, I know a person who has a deed that's signed by George Washington just down the street. Very cool. He's known as bulletproof George Washington. They gave him the presidency because he was a hero. Like, he literally put his life on the line. He was shot 5 times during one battle. And the Indians had a great, saga about the Native Americans, whatever. Had a great saga towards George Washington because they saw bullets go through him. Right? But they didn't get shot.
Out in front because he knew that God was protecting him. So anyways, he put himself in the front.
And in order to be that kind of hero and stay alive, you have to have a relationship with Jesus Christ. That's like this. It's me and Jesus, baby. Like David, right? David is a hero. David is a titan. David is a man among men. Mm-hmm. And that is what all men should aspire to.
Right.
But, you can get yourself killed. Right? You really can get yourself killed. But real men who achieve masculinity will lay down their lives for other people. And the military takes advantage of that.
Yeah. And
uses that for false wars going on.
True.
If you're going to give your life, it has to be for some great purpose, like the Revolutionary War. You see the movie Patriot, where Mel Gibson's like, this is going to be a war fought in our backyards. Are you ready for this? Mm-hmm. And then he was like, okay, we're going to make this happen, right? So there is a sense of vacancy. And
we have men that are dying over oil.
Yeah, that's
things like that.
Bad.
That's not what you lay your life down for.
No. Or lose an arm or a leg or whatever. Let's see. Of incompleteness. We miss our giants. We are sorry that their age is past. This is Churchill in 1925. We mourn the towering grandeur which surrounded and cheered our long painful ascent. If we could only find some new enormous birds rising towards the heavens as high above our plateau as those old mountains down below rose above the plains and marshes. When you think about our founding fathers, they're denigrated, they are ridiculed, they're tarred, they're feathered. But these were real men. Even Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, James Madison. These men put their lives and property on the line when it comes to slavery.
Right.
You've got to go on the offense. I just watched a video with Dinesh D'Souza saying go on the offense. Stop apologizing for something you didn't do and for something not all Americans did, and go on the offense and say, listen, Jefferson lost. He put his entire fortune on the line and lost everything to create this country, and in effect to make all men equal and to get rid of slavery.
Right.
Same thing with James Madison. James Madison had slaves, and he ended up losing everything on purpose because he wasn't going to make money on the backs of slaves anymore. Dolly Madison was well known to help Thomas Jefferson because he was a widower. So Dolly Madison and James Madison helped him run the
They
White
used
House
to travel to Monticello and stay for
there
months
for
at a
weeks.
time.
And Dolly Madison died pretty much a pauper, like no money, with one servant, and who felt sorry for her at that point because James Madison was like, I'm done with this. So what happens is you have a generation like after like the Me Too generation, right? Where men actually were like, okay, so our fathers and grandfathers built these things on plantations.
Right.
We're going to give it all up. Imagine
And
today.
they did, and that's why they died paupers.
Imagine if Bill Gates gave up everything. Went down to pennies.
Which he's making his millions on slave labor.
He is.
Because of all the products made in
Steve Jobs
in
with
China.
Apple.
Yeah, absolutely.
What if he gave up everything and gave it back to the Chinese people who were making the iPhones for us, right? So those are some things. We're going to move on from the beta male thing, but I wanted to share that with you because I want to move on to some other interesting news. Before we get
No, but that was interesting.
This is what happens. Like when you think about an island, right? Last two people on Earth. It's not happening. We're dying out. We are dying out. Last two people on Earth. These dudes, they're not dudes. They're not dude. I'm sorry. You're not a dude. Okay? We're dying out. We're dead. We're gone. Okay, so another thing running all around on the internet lately.
Running around.
Is this clip from Louis, anti-Semite, black supremacist, might as well be the founder of the opposite of the KKK, Farrakhan. And David Duke, I think, has like 47,000 followers on Twitter. He's got over 500,000. And the only people following David Duke on Twitter are people trying to see what he's going to say so that they can say, look, these are alt-right people.
Right.
People follow Louis Farrakhan because when he speaks, man, you feel it. You feel it,
like
right?
A preacher.
But it's really bad. It is like if David Duke were up there preaching, okay? The Grand Master of the KKK. He is evil. Now, for any of you Jew-hating people, here's your daddy. Here's your daddy right here.
Of black advancement.
Oh, preach it.
Can you prove that, Farrakhan? See, the Jews, the FBI has been the worst enemy of black advancement. Can you prove that, Farrakhan? See, the Jews have control.
You know, he had me on the first sentence, right? But then he moved on to the second one.
Over those agencies of government. Oh, boy.
By the way, if you don't know this is Islam. Have you ever heard of Islam? This is Christian Islam. Christianity and Islam. It's its own nation founder, whatever of Islam that he runs. This Church of Islam that he runs. He's some sort of crazy false prophet who does put Christianity with
ridiculous.
Islam together. It's so weird. Satanic.
I said, well, if you thought you were going to find an old decrepit Farrakhan. Oh, baby. I got a lot of more juice. This enemy he's so angry with Farrakhan.
I love that he refers to himself in the third
That
person.
now, if you like me, you have to either hide it, especially if you want advancement in the white man's world. Now, if you go to work tomorrow and Jews are your boss, don't tell them where you've been.
And Jews are your boss. So, Twitter pretty much erupted with this insanity of Louis Farrakhan. That's not what I wanted to do. And I like what Dana Lesh has to say.
Women's March
Because the Women's March organizers love this dude. Like, seriously, I'm going to show you a picture here where two of the Women's March girls are saying Minister Farrakhan's statements about Jewish, queer, and trans people are not aligned with the Women's March. Below, two co-founders of the Women's March, Carmen Perez and Tamika Mallory, demonstrate how not aligned they are with this anti-Semite. Yay! We love this old crazy man. Just so disgusting of a person. Let's see. Okay. All right, Dana.
Women's March organizers Tamika Mallory, Linda Zarsower, and Carmen Perez have spent the past several weeks accusing me and the NRA of sexism, racism, homophobia, and violence. The leftist media has gleefully spread these lies, pinning headlines each more sensational than the next. Bigots, apocalyptic, hate, shame, terrorists. But here's one story I have yet to see the media cover: the violent agenda of the men behind these Women's March organizers. They include Islamic extremist Siraj Wahash, race riot insider Al Sharpton, and this man.
We'll tear this goddamn country up.
Yep, that's Louis Farrakhan, a religious terrorist whose highlight reel of bigoted beliefs includes, quote, Hitler was a very great man, end quote. This is the man behind the so-called peaceful, tolerant, and nonviolent Women's March organizers. The Charlie to their anarchist angels, father of the modern violent left, or Daddy Farrakhan.
Our brother, our leader, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Like the KKK, Farrakhan is an anti-Semite who incites hatred against Jewish people by spreading conspiracies. Like ISIS, he has preached that homosexuality is a crime that should be punished by death. Like a racist, he's incited division with statements like, quote, the white man is our mortal enemy, end quote. Like a xenophobe, he sows religious fears with propaganda claims like, quote, God will destroy America by the hands of the Muslims.
He's Muslim, by the way.
Tamika, Linda, Carmen, how dare you accuse me of racism and sexism and homophobia and whatever the hell other ism or obia you've invented to push your radical agenda, or should I say Daddy Farrakhan's radical agenda? You don't get to call me all those things when a man you look up to and call honorable and hold hands with and take selfies with represents the exact type of bigot you pretend to march against. If you want to stop hate, start with Daddy Farrakhan. If you feel you're not safe, go tell Daddy Farrakhan to tone down his divisive racial rhetoric.
We need to put the American flag down because we've cut as much hell under that as the Confederate flag.
Ladies, you have the power to end his hate-filled propaganda. Plan a march. I'll be there.
Whoa.
Well said. Dana Lesh is pulling no punches
Nope,
at this point.
Nope.
She's starting a new program.
Nope.
And she's really excited about it, and she's putting it out there.
Yep.
So I'm really proud
there
of
you
her.
have that was all over Twitter. Even Jake Tapper got in on it. He's wondering where the rest of the media is. So I find that to be admirable of Jake Tapper, who is never without some sort of surprise coming from him.
We've got a comment here on Facebook Live from Deacon Desmond C. Warren. Says, good old Farrakhan man. I went to the Million Man March in 1995. He raised a lot of money for helping the black community. And you know what he did with that money to help? Nothing.
Put it in his own pocket.
Thank you for that, Desmond.
We got his gold tie and his gold handkerchief and his gold glasses. That's what Farrakhan did, y'all.
I like that, Farrakhan man.
Farrakhan man. I like that too. All right. Okay, moving on to this is kind of a little bombshell that Project Veritas dropped on us today or yesterday. Actually, in February 2016, they dropped this, but I guess they're re-upping it. But I don't know. Let's see. James O'Keefe put this out today. Okay, so I'm trying to follow his own story. Trying to follow his story. Breaking, Project Veritas Action seeks the DOJ criminal investigation into Senator Sanders' 2016 campaign for collusion during a federal election with a foreign entity,
Hashtag foreign collusion.
Australia. So, Project Veritas Fund has requested a criminal investigation by the U.S. Department of Justice into the Bernie Sanders 2016 presidential campaign to determine if Sanders' campaign and the Australian Labor Party conspired to defraud the U.S. government and allowed foreign national interference with the U.S. elections. The request for an investigation of the Sanders campaign and the Australian Labor Party is based on the belief that there was a conspiracy to defraud the United States government, as well as the likelihood of false statements to the United States government.
Mm-hmm.
Project Veritas Fund's legal counsel and author of the complaint, Benjamin Barr, compared the findings to the popular Russian collusion scandal, he says. Given the unusual breadth and depth of likely foreign involvement in America's 2016 presidential election, we request a thorough criminal investigation of the matters described herein. Barr goes on to point out that like this complaint about 13 foreign nationals assisting one federal campaign, the grand jury in Washington, D.C. recently indicted 13 Russians for interfering in a federal election. Just for some Facebook and Twitter posts and things like that. Are you kidding me? Additionally, the former Speaker of the New Hampshire House of Representatives, William O'Brien, is sending a letter to the DOJ's Public Integrity Section, as well as the U.S. Attorney's Office in Concord, New Hampshire, asking for an investigation. In his letter, the former Speaker requests an investigation into additional potential criminal violations stemming from an apparent conspiracy to defraud the United States government. So, let me replay this right here.
There it is.
48.
That's the Trump sign.
Hey, alright, let's do it. Are we going to get the big one or the little one?
You can choose.
You can go for the big sign.
This is Ben Kramer, Australian volunteer for the Bernie Sanders campaign.
We've driven all the way out here, so we might as well try and take a decent scalp.
Yeah, but I want to see a what? Are you sure you're want to take? Are you sure we can get the big sign?
As in, get it out of the ground?
I don't know if we can.
Did you see the ease with which I pulled the little sign out of the ground?
No.
I'm so strong. I'm such a strong Australian soy boy.
Oh, something's coming!
It wasn't coming out of the ground.
It wasn't?
No, it wasn't.
Well, now we have to leave this house because
and it was like
that.
It's embarrassing. I'm embarrassed.
You've got an iron grip. How do you feel?
Fantastic. You know.
They're like little kids. I mean, it's...
Was it?
Yeah.
While covering the New Hampshire primary, we met some Australian volunteers working for the Bernie Sanders campaign. We found them pulling down opposition yard signs.
It's illegal.
Is it legal?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know why, but I think it's just like illegal to move or tamper or like do anything to campaign signs. Mate, I'm so sorry. This is like
yeah, you'll just speak to them.
I just really miss my family and I thought I'd tear some signs down.
You know, you could be like, oh, I didn't know we weren't supposed to do that.
Yeah. For example, Hugo would probably be like, oh, you can't do that, like, it's illegal. Don't be stupid. And then he'd be like, seriously, it's like a great idea. Down all the Trump signs.
He's talking about Hugo Palma. He was the Bernie Sanders field director in Manchester, New Hampshire. In our latest video, we revealed that Hugo violated New Hampshire voting laws by registering to vote illegally.
Oops.
Oops. So I love that Project Veritas is doing this, and more power to them. Here's a screenshot of one of the complaints, and so I say, go, baby, go. All right, so now the moment you've been waiting for. We want to move on to Jeff Sessions. Jeff Sessions spoke with Fox host Shannon Bream that he will consider naming a second special counsel to investigate the conduct of the FBI. Now, considering that Jeff Sessions has been mostly AWOL, this interview has given me confidence. He is also going hard after California, suing California for their sanctuary state laws.
Right.
California's governor hitting back. And there is a huge, nasty battle going on right now, and which Jeff Sessions will win because you can't hide criminals from federal ICE agents and justice. It's insanity.
So I don't know, because we had to scrap our first try. I can't remember if we covered this on our second up, because we had a mess up with the audio earlier if you're just joining us. But here's the thing. Leah and I had a lot of confidence in Sessions in the beginning. And then we were just like, we just started calling it. And that's what Leah and I tell you over and over and over again on Resistance Chicks. It doesn't matter what we have said about somebody in the past. It doesn't matter about our confidence or our allegiance or anything like that. If somebody is doing something wrong, we are going to call it out 100% of the time. And we will pick on them and we will call them names. I don't care what we have to do. Sessions has been very weak. He's been very mysterious. He's been AWOL. He needs to be going after Hillary Clinton. There are so many things that need to be happening that Sessions just simply has not been doing.
What we see happening in this government of Trump's, a lot of times, the more pressure you put on something, something changes. Something happens. And so I'm more than ready to give anybody the benefit of the doubt, especially somebody who I felt was a good man for the job in the beginning.
Exactly.
And so when he turns around, he does some good things. Now, remember, President Trump recently tweeted out, why is Attorney General Jeff Sessions asking the Inspector General to investigate potentially massive FISA abuse? He said, will take forever, has no prosecutorial power, and already late with reports on the former FBI Director James Comey. Isn't the IG an Obama guy? Why not use the Justice Department lawyers? Disgraceful. So you're going to hear an answer from Jeff Sessions on this. And I don't think he's prone to lying. Okay, so we're going to see. Let's just see what he has to say here.
House Judiciary Committee Chairman Bob Goodlatte and House Oversight Committee Chairman Trey Gowdy both penning a letter to the Attorney General asking for a second special counsel, citing as part of that these so-called FISA abuses. So I asked the Attorney General what he thinks of their request.
Well, I have great respect for Mr. Gowdy and Chairman Goodlatte, and we're going to consider seriously their recommendations. I have appointed a person outside of Washington, many years in the Department of Justice, to look at all the allegations that the House Judiciary Committee members sent to us, and we're conducting that investigation. I also am well aware that we have a responsibility to ensure the integrity of the FISA process. We're not afraid to look at that. The Inspector General, some think that our Inspector General is not very strong, but he has almost 500 employees, most of which are lawyers and prosecutors.
Get it done then.
And they're looking at the FISA process. We must make sure it's done properly, and we're going to do that, and I'll consider their request.
I know that a couple of things the chairman outlined, that they were worried that the Inspector General wouldn't have the same kind of access or subpoena powers to certain people who may not be under the reach of the DOJ as employees. What do you say to that concern?
That's a concern that I think is worthy of consideration, and we will consider that and are considering it, actually.
Okay, so the FISA applications that we've heard so much about in the news, there have been requests directly to the FISA court to be able to see some of that material. It's been referred back to the DOJ. Would you all release those applications so that people can see what was in them?
I am determined to release everything that's properly releasable. It does tend to be that the more you put these documents out, many of which are very sensitive, the more they leak. So we have to be careful about that. We also have to follow the rules of the department and legal requirements. So, but for example, the text messages that caused quite a stir, those were produced at our effort to make sure we produce everything possible. The Inspector General actually found those first, and then we made that public and determined we could make it public. Some objected to it. So you're raising a good point. We need to get as much public out to the public as possible and do it in a way that breeds confidence. And if there are errors within the department, we need to fix them. So we've got a new FBI director. President Trump appointed him. He's a talented person. He's got a new deputy replacing the previous deputy. We've got a new chief of staff in the FBI, a new communications director, a new chief counsel. So we've got a fresh start at the FBI, and these are people of integrity and ability. So I want the American people to know that things are being done, and we'll have the kind of department that everybody can respect. That is a determination of mine, and but we got to do it in a proper way.
And as to these decisions that you're making, a very famous tweet the president sent out last week saying, "Why is AG Jeff Sessions asking the Inspector General to investigate potentially massive FISA abuse? Will take forever, has no prosecutorial power, and already late with reports on Comey, etc. Isn't the IG an Obama guy?" he questions. "Why not use Justice Department lawyers?" All caps, disgraceful. You followed up with a statement that said, "As long as I'm the Attorney General, I will continue to discharge my duties with integrity and honor." You talked about the work that's been done and what you have launched and feeling it's the appropriate process. Then you went out to dinner with the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, and the Solicitor General. And I'm not sure how that went over at the White House. What's the status of things?
Well, he's my deputy, and Noel is a great Solicitor General and a lot of fun, so we had an opportunity to dine together. But look, the President is the President of the United States. He has a right to criticize and make suggestions to the Department of Justice. We take that with great respect. What I said in that statement also was, we are determined to make sure the American people have confidence in the FISA process. That was part of my statement too. And I say that as long as I'm Attorney General, we're going to make sure we do those things with integrity and justice as the American people want.
The President has said, just within the last couple of days, he likes some chaos. He likes some conflict. He thinks it makes him better, his decisions better, and that he likes to mix it up. And a lot of people say, well, this style is working. He is actually ticking things off of his agenda and getting things accomplished. What do you make of his management style?
I think President Trump moves the ball. He can get things done that I'm not sure any other person in America could get done. He is bold. He's not worried about what people say. I believe in the policies that he's advancing. That's why I supported him so early for president. He was saying the things that I thought Americans had a right to hear. He was promising to act on those things and get things done, and he does not like things not getting done. He keeps pushing every day. It's a remarkable strength that he has, and I think it's good for America.
So Secretarian 1955 here says, "I'm from Alabama and have known and voted for Sessions for years. I believe he is working behind the scenes. Just as Trump won't tell his enemies his plans, neither will Sessions." I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm still on the fence about Sessions. I don't know. And since I don't know, I don't want to put my feelings behind this. However, I can say that I am excited about this. I'm excited that he is talking about maybe bringing somebody out to possibly put together a second special counsel. Like you were saying on our dog walk the other day, Trey Gowdy was against a second special counsel for a long time, and finally he came out and said, no, we have to have this. This is something that has to be done. It's just too much.
Yeah, exactly. So Jeff Sessions is also, I had to talk to you guys, he is suing California. And Attorney General Jeff Sessions has a 2-word message for everybody in California. Lawyer up. Amid escalating tensions with Washington over immigration raids, U.S. Attorney Jeff Sessions is traveling to Sacramento to drop a bombshell. The federal government is suing California over its new immigration laws. The United States is seeking to block 3 state laws, including its so-called sanctuary state policy relating to local law enforcement, that the lawsuit says reflect a deliberate effort by California to obstruct the United States enforcement of federal immigration laws. They passed 3 illegal immigrant laws, which is why in the world, if there are so many pressing problems for people who are here legally, would you spend that much time to pass 3 laws for illegal immigrants?
Right. One
of them I find highly disturbing in that owner of a private business is actually forbidden from cooperating with ICE. I just can't believe that. Senate Bill 54, which sets limits on cooperation between California police and federal immigration agencies in immigration enforcement. Assembly Bill 450, here's this crazy one, carried in anticipation of workplace raids, which requires employers to ask for court documents before allowing immigration agents access to the workplace or employee information, and provisions to Assembly Bill 103, a budget trailer bill that require the California Attorney General to conduct reviews of public and privately run immigration detention centers that contract with ICE. And so there's not much else that that can be done at this point because it's absolutely insane. I mean, it's absolutely insane. I think tomorrow when we go live, I'm going to bring you this story with Ted Cruz on Joe Scarborough talking about the Second Amendment and talking about this here. Baltimore School District can't heat schools. Remember that? But they're sending 60 busloads of kids to anti-gun march with free t-shirts and meals. Now,
could it be that the funding is coming from Soros?
And he doesn't care about heated schools.
Could it be that Soros could probably better utilize these billions of dollars that he wants to throw to bettering society at actually bettering society with problems that people actually have?
I showed this to Michelle the other day. This is what democracy looks like. Kids, I don't know, probably walking out of school. Remember, this is Baltimore, which has the highest murder rate in the country and the strictest gun laws. And they're using kids. This is just a fad, which is quite embarrassing for these children when they grow up to realize that they were literally being used and gun violence has got to go. But here's the thing. I think 11,000 people are killed every year by a gun. And only, I think it was it 600 of those are rifles. The rest are handguns and gang violence. And you've got gang members who are now following the people that they've killed. They're going to cemeteries to kill up the rest of the people. How do you stop maniacs like that? Seriously. But Baltimore, literally, the Baltimore mayor says the city is organizing and wants 60 free buses. These kids want to get a t-shirt and a free meal. Now, I guarantee you they would show up for a t-shirt and a free meal.
No matter what the cause.
No matter what it was. If it was for the Second Amendment, they'd show up.
I know.
So, their brains aren't functioning correctly on this right now. I am not in the camp that is afraid of losing our Second Amendment. I feel like, as with the Women's March,
it's going to fizzle.
And not even fizzle, but it shows just how insane they are. It shows how desperate they are, and it shows how far left they are. They keep talking about the alt-right and the far right or whatever.
Right.
But really, all of our politicians, all of Hollywood, all of the mainstream media, they're like alt-left. They're far left. They're pushing... They would be happy with the taking of everybody's guns, free speech, things like that. There's no classical liberals left who just say, hey, let's make sure people don't starve to death and homeless people have a shelter at night.
Right.
There's just a difference there between classical liberals and the far left commies. So I think we're going to wrap things up.
Well, Candace here was talking about in California. She says it was all over the news, ice in Northern California a few days ago. And then she says, or a week and a half ago, living in California, seeing them protest sessions in Sacramento. Let me tell you, traffic was cruddy. Half the people aren't even from Northern Cali.
Yo.
And then she says it was a red banner on ABC News telling the immigrants to shelter and keep their doors locked.
Wow.
So, yeah, she says the local news out here is like watching third world news. Wow. That is unfortunate. Wow. We haven't been to California in a really long time. We lived there for 3 months in, 1999? The summer of 99. And it was a different place. It was a different place back then. I don't think I would want to be there right now for sure.
I didn't want to be there then.
I know it was kind of.
You guys can stay in California. I literally, after being there for 3 months, was like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here.
And it's not just the traffic, but the traffic itself is enough to want to leave.
Yeah, no kidding. The traffic is enough to. I mean, we blew out our brakes. Just like everybody goes fast and then you slam on your brakes. It's like, man, it's like causing yourself to have a concussion just by driving.
The highways there have got like 20 lanes across. It's a ridiculousness. All right, you guys. So we're going to sign off here. We're going to go birthday shopping with Leah this evening. But we will be back here tomorrow night, Friday.
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. We're going to cover some of the topics that Leah talked about. We'll probably try to do a weekly roundup like we usually do. And then, of course, we will be back here on Leah's birthday. For
like
our,
sort of
it is a big deal to go live on your birthday for our European and UK news on March 11th, which is a Sunday. So
our friends Heather and Kevin
of Going
Batty have their channel back up. If you just want some just regular entertainment, they will entertain you. They are really funny.
Yes.
And their live feed was cut off because Kevin did a devotional. Like, seriously.
So they had to wait their 90 days in jail, in YouTube jail.
For doing a devotional.
Eric says, thank you, Leah, for all your incredible news on Twitter. So you guys can find Resistance Chicks on Twitter. You can find Resistance Chicks on Facebook.
Thank you, Eric, for being a constant
encouragement and retweeter.
Communicator on Twitter. I'm kind of glad that I'm not one of the big names on Twitter because I don't have the ability to decompartmentalize your brain like other people do, because like one crazy person on there just gets me thinking for all day. Like I wouldn't have time
anywhere
to think.
We go, she'll be processing and talking about it.
How do I argue back to this person? So it's just
Secretarian says I won't be here live tomorrow. I have a funeral to attend. I'm sorry about whoever your loss is. That's really sad.
So like, comment, subscribe. Remember, it's not just a conspiracy if it's a truth.
It's not just a conspiracy theory. It's definitely a conspiracy. It's all conspiratorial. Everything
in the world.
All right, you guys, we love you. God loves you. God bless. And we will see you back here. Hang on, when's Mark's birthday? Mark's birthday is today. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Mark H.
Happy birthday to you. Thank you for being such a wonderful part of our channel. Mark's here a lot. All right, you guys, we're going to sign off. Have a wonderful Thursday evening, and we will see you at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow. Wait, hang on. See, my thing is I'm having issues. I'm going to have to work on that. Oh, somebody had said that you looked like a Polish girl today, but they missed why you were wearing red and white. Because we were going to be interviewed by IPP TV, and we were all Polished up. We were all ready and everything.
We got some Polish chocolate at the store yesterday just to kind of be Polishy.
Yep.
Polska, and they got sick, so we didn't get to do it.
And that's okay.
Next week.
All right, so we will see you guys back here tomorrow.
And Tuesday.
And Tuesday, we are going to be on the radio with John B. Wells from Caravan to Midnight. That guy has the deepest voice, since James Earl Jones. I'm not kidding. So
we're excited about that.
They pre-record those shows. So you can't actually, but we will let you know when it's up and how you can listen to it. So I'm really excited about that. All right, you guys, good night. God bless. Adios. Hasta mañana.
Bring that dog inside.
This one's out front.
Bring the dogs inside. Bring the dogs inside.